When does it go live?
Yes, I go live.
Now?
Yes.
Going early?
Student can hear you now.
Oh, they can hear me now. Start it.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
How many do we have? Screen's a little bigger. How many students?
23.
Alright, so we'll wait a moment.
Yes.
We can say greeting to the student first.
Yes. Yeah. So, welcome back everyone. Additional English with me. Happy new lockdown. Happy new year. And I hope you had a good time or a good break over the weekend and the days after. So I thought today we'd look at the worksheet that I sent you. So well done to all of you who have already sent the worksheet. I know who you are. And it's best that we look at it and go through it together so that we all know what is expected for the speaking activity, because we're building up to the speaking activity. So that's the reason for doing that today. We'll have a look at the worksheet. So what did the worksheet cover? What was on the worksheet? Well, first of all, there was an exercise to do with pie charts and comparing percentages. And it's important to note that percentages is the noun for percent. So percentage, you can talk about general relationships in the graph. Sorry, just trying to get the pen. And then it is different to percent. So this is different. It's different to percent because like cents in the dollar, how many cents are there in a dollar? There are 100 cents. So percent, cent means 100. Excuse me 1 minute. So percent measures something specific, so like 58%, 42%, something like that. Okay, so let's try that down. Percent and cent just means 100. Okay, so this one is more specific and this one is more general. We talk about relationships. Then there is an exercise on line graphs, or a line graph, and that was a reading exercise, and then you fill out and actually draw the graph. So giving you practice in how graphs are described and how you interpret the data for values and increase and decrease. Then there were some activities on describing increase and decrease, practice of collocations. Remember, these are just really word chunks. So the example I gave before was like big deal. These are words that just usually go together in everyday language. Big deal. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Or, as we've seen from the vocabulary related to graphs, you might have something like sharp rise. Okay, so those are word chunks or collocations. And then finally, the exercise was prepositions of time. So like in, at, in August, for example, at 10 o'clock. On, we do on. Possibly on. Anyway, let's get to it. So the first graph is, sorry, the first chart is a pie chart. And here we have the title, which tells us all about the pie chart. So this is about immigrant. Immigration is when you go from one country to another country to live or to permanently work. And then labour. Labour is just like people who work. So this is the labour force. How strong the labour is. So labour is usually like physical work, physical activity, something like that. And this was in Australia by region or country. So here we have a region, for example, and here we have a country. Okay, and that's where they were born. So country of birth is where you are born. And then it also gives you the date, and this is to do with thousands. So this is like a unit of measurement, which is broken down into percentages. Okay, so this is a pie chart where we are able to compare people from different regions and see how much of the share of the total they each make for the labour force in Australia. Alright, so red is Europe, dark blue is Asia, yellow is New Zealand, light blue is North Africa and Middle East, green America, and then we have other. Alright, so the first one we've got, we'll go back to the graph. Follow the graph here. Okay, so read it with me if you like. The chart shows the different nationalities, so this is people from different countries, that made up the immigrant workforce, the immigrant labour force to Australia in. So let's have a look at our options. These are all our options. And really this can only be a time, right? So we're looking for a time or date, and then we can only see one, which is 1991. This is a year, so it must be that. It's also in the title. Okay, so it's clear from the chart that there were, well, let's have a look at the chart. It's talking about main groups, so if we look at the chart for main groups, well, the main groups are certainly red and dark blue and possibly yellow also. So later on it tells us, if we're look for the semicolon, that means the next part is related to the first part. So this is the first part, and then this is related to what is being said in the first part. So there are Europeans, Asians, and New Zealanders. 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 main groups. Does that make sense? Yes, we can see that's 3 main groups there. Okay, moving on to the next sentence. Only a relatively small number of workers were from other regions. Yes, that makes sense because it's a lot smaller. Okay, there's something of foreign workers were from Europe. So Europe, remember, is red, and you can see that is like the biggest share that they have. So you can say the greater number. I'm looking for something which is a greater number, or a bigger number, and then that happens to be this word here. We look for a list. It's majority. majority. So the majority of foreign workers were from Europe. So most people came from Europe. In fact, nearly something of the immigrant workers were of origin, were of European origin. So this looks like we're looking for a percentage or something else, a fraction. So it's 62%. So it's 62%. So then we're looking for a fraction of 62. So we could say that it's almost, this is the same as nearly, right? Almost, nearly. It's almost 66%, right? So it's almost 2/3 of the immigrant workers were of European origin. Great, okay then, let's move on to the next part. So, the something group of foreign workers in the labour force were Asians. Okay, so we're talking about this one. And so we can see that's the second largest. The first largest is this one, second largest, and then third largest. So the best option here is second largest. Okay, and second largest, they represented just under what? So we're looking for a number here again, and it's going to be a fraction. There's not really any other choices available apart from fractions. So percentages, they represented just under what? So this is 17% is just under, in general terms you can round up or round down, so just under 20% would be rounded up. So what is 20% in terms of a fraction? 20 over 100 is 1/5. So this one is a fifth. Next sentence, New Zealanders who made up almost something of the foreign workforce that year were the third largest group. Right, 1, 2, first, second, and then third. So then what percentage, what fraction of percentage is this? New Zealanders, we've got 9%, which is just under 10%. So we can say 10 over 100 is a tenth. Okay, so that's that one. Next paragraph then, the number of workers of other nationalities was what? We've got this section here. Well, the best way to describe that would be smaller or smallest. So which one is it? Smaller. Workers from North Africa and the Middle East, for example, were only what? So we've got North Africa and Middle East, that's the light blue, and we know that's 4%. 4%, is that in the options? Yes, 4%. Of the whole foreign labour force, so 4% out of the total. And then we're talking about the next sentence, the something nationality group, however, were Americans. So let's have a look at the pie chart where it says Americans. Americans is green. You see green is 3%. So the 3% represents the smallest. And how much was it? 3%. Americans were 3%. So then our final one should be 3%. Okay, so that's working through the pie chart and what was written about the pie chart, describing the different types of shares, and those are the answers. This one should be in red. Okay, so that was the reading part of that first worksheet. Moving on to the second worksheet, then we had a line graph, or we had to draw a line graph from the description given. And unfortunately, there was a bit of a mistake on this one. We had December, but it should actually have been November, because the intervals were 2 months. And then you may have spotted that. I think some of you did spot that. So well done for that. So it shouldn't be December, it should be November. Alright. Okay then, so take a minute just to read this, if you haven't looked at the worksheet already. The line graph shows figures. Remember, figures is a number which represents something, so figures for unemployment in the UK workforce, the labour force, between May 2003 and July 2006. Then we can see that it says, as I say at the beginning, so we're looking at the start of something, and it starts giving us percentages, different percent, and dates, and tells us whether it's going up or whether it's going down. So it looks like this is a sequential description. It starts at the beginning, finishes at the end, tells us how it goes up and down in between. Alright, so let's continue. So it is clear from the chart that the rate of unemployment fluctuated a great deal. So remember this word fluctuate, which means to go up and down. It's basically telling us that it's going up and down, it's increasing and decreasing from this point to this point, which we have to try and fill in from the description. So let's start from the beginning then. At the beginning of the period, unemployment stood at 5.1%. So you can see from the graph this is 5.1%. A few months later, so remember each of these is 2 months. So this is a few months. A few means 2. So at the beginning of the period, unemployment stood at 5.1%. A few months after, so this is moving straight to the next section, the figure had risen slightly. So you see a slight rise here to 5.2%. Okay. The next part then describes what happens after it's at 5.2%. So the unemployment is how many people do not have a job, so how many people are unemployed, who don't have work. I've got some comments here as well. Unemployment then remains stable until September 2003. So this is where it starts. From this point on, this is where we're going to start drawing the graph. From this point on, there was excuse me, a steady downward trend. So downward, remember, obviously down. There was a steady downward trend, and by January 2004, so by January, which is this part, January 2004, the rate had fallen to 4.9. So we need to just check what the increment is here, what the interval is there. So it's going up by 0.2, right? So this will be 4.4, this will be 4.5, this will be 4.6. So going up by 0.2 for each one as well. So by January 2004, the rate had fallen to 4.9. So we're looking for 4.9. So January, so somewhere about there, right? Should have fallen to. So draw that in. There we go. Next part. So it stayed at this level, so it remained unchanged, or it stabilized, or it stayed constant until May the same year. So we're looking at May the same year, which is 04. So now we can just draw that in. Stayed the same, so it's the same at 4.9%. So draw your line up, and then draw the line across. But, okay, so but from May to July, there was another small drop of 0.1%. So this time we're going down from 4.9 to 4.8. And this has to be July, so I'd say around about there. So that represents a small drop of 0.1, right? Okay, and then you can draw that in yourselves. Right. Now it says there were no further changes, so again it remains steady or remains stable in the level of unemployment, or the level or rate of unemployment until March the following year. So we have to go to March 2005, which is there. So draw in the graph. It's the same value, so somewhere around there. And then draw your line across. Okay, from March to May 2005, there was a small increase. Okay, a small increase of 0.1%. So from March to May, a small increase of 0.1. 0.1 would take us to 4.9. So somewhere around there. And then it continues, but this did not last long, and the figure had fallen back to 4.8% by July. So looking in July, we're going up here. And it's back down to 4.8%. Draw your line. Okay, looking at the next section. From September 2005, so from this point, there was a marked, remember marked means like significant or noticeable upward trend going up in the rate of unemployment in the UK from September 2005, okay, then from here to November. So okay, here, the same year, the figure shot up from 4.8. So we're going from 4.8 to 5.2. So 5.2. 2. So it shot up. Yes, it shot up quite quickly, didn't it? So make sure you draw these in when you're doing it yourself. Draw in the line also, put in the line, and then join this bit up. This wasn't really specified, but we can assume with some certainty that it stayed the same. Okay. And then we see that continuing on, it says the rate remains stable for a few months. So we don't really expect any change in this portion of the graph. But then it rose again and had reached a peak, so it's rising, and then reaches a peak of 5.7. So this is telling us about the end of the graph now. Okay, so draw in and finish off the graph, and then should have ended up with something like that. Okay, so well done if your picture looks something like that. I know there was a bit of an error with this, so don't worry about that. I'm fully aware of it. Where that said December instead of November. And that's fine. The main thing is that you've attempted to draw it and that you know what's going on in terms of describing. Okay. So, here we go. The next part then is talking about word chunks, which we talked about, the collocations. So remember how we did that. We had adjective and noun. And we also had verb and adverb. So we had two ways of describing the same thing. And then we practiced how to change between both types of collocations using there is, or simply there is or in, and then also the other way around. So you could have a subject and then the verb, and then how that changed. Alright, so let's have a look at some examples then. So here we have an example of verb adverb, right? Verb adverb. And we're going to change it to adjective and noun collocation. Remember we talked about the tenses. So what tense is this? We've got rose, which I said was rised before, it's not rised. So the infinitive of this is to rise, and this is the verb to, or past tense. So we know this is past tense, so not there is, but there was. Let's just write it here, there was. Now we're going to change from verb, adverb to adjective and noun. So we're looking for an adjective and noun. So then we need to change adverb to adjective. So what is the adjective for sharply? That's sharp. Then what is the noun for rose? Well, like we said, fortunately, although you have to know certain how certain verbs change in terms of writing down the noun, we have a situation where the infinitive verb is often the same as the noun for describing graphs. So rise is the noun, so there's a sharp rise, and then don't forget this, in what we're talking about, and the subject is price of oil. Okay, sorry about my handwriting, so there's that typed out for you. Number 2, right then, let's look at number 2. So this is going the other way. Now we're converting or changing adjective, noun, to verb and adverb. So we're going to change the verb and adverb. So what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about temperature. So the temperature and then we're going to do verb. We're going to change it to verb and adverb. Temperature increase. Don't forget that the subject-verb agreement. So it, temperature is an it. So with this is non-plural, we have to add the s, right? Singular, singular. So we add an s for it in the singular. So the temperature increases, and then we need to convert noticeable to the adverb. So we just take away the e. Okay, and then we can add on what period we're talking about from May onwards. Something like that. Alright, so you should have come up with that. Be careful with this, yeah, again. I know some of you forget to add on the s at the end. Don't worry about it, it's kind of normal. Okay, so let's go on to number 3 then, which is talking about the number of people attending the theatre and how that changed. Excuse me. So we're going to convert from verb and adverb, and then we're converting that to adjective noun. So there. Okay, what tense are we looking at? So we're looking at present perfect, right? So there has been. And then don't forget we've got a noun, so we have to put at. What is the adjective? The adjective is changing from dramatically. So the adjective for dramatically is dramatic. And then the noun for fallen, so we have fall, fell, fallen. So we can say fall is the noun. And then what are we talking about? In what? In the number of people attending the theatre. Okay, so there we go. Alrighty, number 4 then. There has been a steady rise in DVD sales for the first 6 months of the year. So we're talking about DVD sales. And now we're going to convert to verb and adverb. So convert this. DVD sales. Remember, this is now past perfect, so DVD sales had. And verb 3 for rise, rise, rose, risen. So DVD sales had risen. For the first 6 months of the year. Good, sorry, I forgot about steady. So steady, you just change to the adverb steadily. Okay, number 5, we have, there has been a rapid growth in the use of alternative energy sources. So looking at this, we're talking about that, the alternative, the use of alternative energy sources. And then this is have or has plus verb 3, right? So it has growth. Right, this is a situation where the noun isn't the same as the infinitive. So the infinitive verb, so we need to know what verb 3 is for growth. So we have, I'm sure you can remember how to recite this, grow, grew, grown. So it's grown. And then don't forget the adverb at the end. Rapid, you just change to rapidly. Alright, finally then for this, the last part of this exercise, question number 6. The popularity of self-catering holidays, so this is what we're talking about, subject, and then we have a verb, and then adverb, and then a time period. So start with there. What verb tense is it? We're looking at past tense, so there was. And now we need the noun. So decreased is decrease. Don't forget add decrease. Significantly we change to adjective. So there was a significant decrease. There was a significant decrease in what? In the popularity of self-catering holidays. So this is where you go on holiday and you cook by yourself. You don't go to restaurants, stay in a camper van or something. Do that. And then don't forget to include all the information, so you could have this actually at the beginning, or you could have it at the end. Alright, the final part of the worksheet then was prepositions. And then you should be familiar with most of the prepositions anyway, like in the last video, last class, and the PowerPoint that I sent to you, I had an example of when to use those. So for number 1 then, we're looking for a preposition that relates to a month. So January, is it in or at or on? Well, it should be in. We should have got in. In January, there was a notable rise in the number of people taking sick leave. Sick leave is like sick leave is when you don't come to work because you're a bit ill or you're sick. Number 2, temperature usually reaches a peak. So remember, this means maximum. The temperature usually reaches a peak, and then we're talking about a particular time. So what do we use? Well, this one should be straightforward. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Number 3, from 1997, easy. From 1997 something 2006, there was a steady increase in the sales of organic products. Should have got 2. Number 4. Okay then, so we need to know what this word is. This is not something that we maybe don't know straight away. So recession actually means when there is a period of increasing unemployment, so people not having much work. So you might have heard of boom or bust, or the boom and bust cycle. This is boom when everything is going well, market is good and there are high profits, and then bust is the opposite, when things are not so good It's not so good, and then like money is not so good. People become unemployed. So you have this, the boom and bust cycle. Some people say it's the same as the business cycle. So anything to do where you have an economy based on capitalism. So a capitalist economy, you usually see this kind of cycle. It's very good, and then booms and then busts. Okay, so this is talking about a period then, a time period when it's not so good. So we can use either, there are two options for this actually. You can use either in, but the better one would be during. So during the recession, the unemployment rate grew steadily. So more and more people became unemployed. And then after the recession, it got better. So after the recession, employment grew steadily. Something like that. Okay? So more people getting work after the recession. Okay, number 5 then. Television audience figures rise steadily. And then we need something which tells us the time, preposition for time. At. However, you could also have others. So for example, you could also have after. You could be talking about not specifically at that time, you can be talking about after 6 o'clock in the evening. The television figures steadily go up and up and up, steadily rise. Or you could be talking about from a specific time. So if you got either at or after or from, then that's fine. Okay, number 6, question number 6. The time. Okay, so we're looking for month, preposition for month, in or on. In June, sales figures were low, but later on in the year they began to rise rapidly. Okay, seems fairly easy. Number 7, the price of oil shot up to $70 per barrel. In, right? In August, if you're talking specifically about August, you could also have other ones. So you could also have by. You could be talking about before August, by August. And you could also be talking about during. So just specifically about the month. Okay, so you could have 3 options there, so either in, or by, or during. Number 8, from November. What preposition can we have here? We have to. From November to the end of the year, oil consumption continued to rise. But really, you should have had this one until November until the end of the year. Oil consumption is obviously the same as use, how much you consume, how much you eat, how much you use. Alright, and then the final one, question number 9, there has been a marked increase in road accidents. What do we have here? We might have said after. I think that's okay, but really the better answer there is since. So from this period of time when it started, when they were introduced, there has been a marked increase in the accidents. Okay, well hopefully that has made it clearer. What's in there? And then remember I said this is all building up to the speaking exercise. So well done for attempting the worksheet and then sending that in. But the main part of this activity was to get you up to speed so that you know how to describe the values in different parts of the graph for the speaking activity, which is is what we are going to do next. So look for the most important parts of the graph. I'm going to send you a graph which you will need to describe, and look for the most important parts that you think are the parts that you think are most important, and go ahead and describe those. The best way to do this is to write it down. First of all, write it down, and then you can be careful with how you construct your adjective, noun, or verb and verb collocations. Be careful about what values you are referencing or quoting. Remember, these are figures also, so they represent something, some number which you are talking about. In the actual speaking activity, very important, don't just read it, so I will know if you are reading it. Don't just read it. So try to think about what you were talking about as you say it. And then look at the part of the graph you're describing. So, you don't have to do this all in one go, but you can break it up into sections. So do this part of the graph first, then this part of the graph. So by all means, if you pause, obviously we're going to do this in MP3. Up to you if you want to do MP4. You could do it illustrating parts of the graph. But you can definitely physically pause the MP3, or whilst you're talking, just stop, pause for a long time, think about the next part of the graph that you're going to talk about, and then you can continue. So don't worry about editing too much. You can just stop, look at the graph, and then you can speak. That's fine. So continuing on to the next part. Alright, so if you did want to use MP4, then you can use something like this. This is something I've used before, which is very handy. And then you can annotate, or you can add notes, or show things like I'm doing here with the pen as you are talking about that particular part of the graph. So that's one way to do it. If you don't want to do this, then an audio MP3 file is fine. It's perfect. So just do that. So that's it for today. What I will say is there is a Kahoot. It's a Kahoot game which I'll organise and send to your individual line groups later, all about this topic as well. So you need to know everything we've talked about. And also, what else? Oh yeah, and then also I will send you information on how we're going to do the audio part, how you can send me your audio files. Okay, so that's it for now. I hope you all did really well. Make sure you send your worksheets if you haven't done that already. But remember, the main part, as I said, is the speaking part. So good luck with that. Any questions, let me know. And then, so that's bye-bye for now. See you next time.
Okay, see you next time. Bye. Teacher, bye.